In most sci-fi settings, whether it's set in space, in the past, or future, the post-apocalypse, or just normal Earth with big buildings and super advanced technology, there's a commonality that can be found in all of them. Well, almost all of them. And that's there being more than the average humans walking around the setting. Aliens, robots, mutants, dark ones, AI, near humans, and whatever else could possibly lie in between. Humans getting some new rivals and companions on Earth and in the cosmos is pretty common sci-fi affair, and of course Fallout is no different. Ever since the Great War kicked off and ended in like 10 minutes, humans haven't been the lone inhabitants of Earth for a while now. Now, see, the moment we decided to blow each other up was the moment we got new companions and friends on this now slightly scorched blue ball we call home. A whole host of new creatures have all been trying to carve out a place for themselves in this new world of ours. And it's not just the mutants that we all know and love. Yes, this may be surprising or not surprising at all, but there are more new races than just the average biological monstrosity. Now, let's get on to the Fallout.
Please assume the position.
As I'm sure we all know, there is a whole host of biological oddities wandering the wasteland, but many, if not most of them, are not what I would refer to in at least the grand scheme of things as a people, even if they are bipedal. And yes, even if they can shoot a gun. Sorry to say this, but I just don't think the marked men count as a culture, no offense to all marked men lovers, but through the great gears of extreme conditions and forced evolution, the wasteland has borne more than a few new species, that in the grand scheme of things are no different from me and you. Well, mostly no different. You know, there's a few differences. Some come from mutated humans, and others, well, they come from a different source. Let's say that for now. First off, we have the two stars of the Fallout series, which is why I'm putting them together. We have the Ghoul and the Super Mutant. We all know these two. They are just as much the face of the series as the power armor on the box art. Despite some ghouls, well, a lot of ghouls being monsters, and many Super Mutants basically just being monsters too, both are capable of just being people, especially ghouls, who, in the wise words of Three Dog, are just as much human as you and I, beneath the rotting skin and exposed muscle. How exactly ghouls are made is a mystery to post-war science. Now, obviously, as most know, it's due to extreme exposure to radiation, but most people, like in real life, just die from extreme exposure to radiation. But for some reason, a select portion of the population in the Fallout world don't turn into piles of goo when exposed to more radiation than is in the zone. And instead, they begin to rot but continue to live despite it. The Fallout TV show shows us that some, if not all, ghouls have a weird healing factor to them, which is odd. Like, okay, sure, they can regenerate wounds that would take months to heal, but also they can just sort of like graft new fingers onto them. Still not sure how I feel about that, but you know, sure, why not? I guess it's a trade-off for the rotting. But speaking of rotting, ghouls can rot at different rates from one another, creating a wide array of different levels of ghoulification. Some ghouls are basically noseless people with skin conditions, while others look like zombies, and well, others are barely holding themselves together, appearing almost more skeletal than zombie-like. Thankfully, these differences were shown to be real by the Fallout TV show, and not just weird discrepancies between games. Ghouls' biology is a little odd. They not only are immune to radiation, but often seem to benefit from it. Feral glowing one ghouls can be seen releasing a burst of radiation to literally revive ghouls back from the dead. But at the same time, radiation is believed to possibly speed up the biggest drawback of being a ghoul, that's becoming feral. Although that is simply a theory that is not 100% confirmed. Ah yes, becoming feral, the biggest problem ghouls are facing. Well, that and like the Enclave, the Brotherhood of Steel in the Fallout TV show, I guess. When a person becomes a ghoul, some just straight up turn feral right out the gate. You know, becoming brainless monsters. Meanwhile, some other people just turn into the average normal ghouls we know. You know, just being sort of rotting normal people. Both types of ghouls have extremely long lifespans, but for a normal ghoul, there's always the looming threat of one day going feral. It happens at different times for different people. Some ghouls will live 200 years without a single sign of mental decline, while other ghouls will live 70 years and start to rapidly become feral. It's basically very aggressive dementia for our favorite living corpses. There have been shown ways to at least slow the process down with a drug, again of course seen in the Fallout TV show. The thing about feral ghouls is they always act weird. With the decline of cognitive functions, there is always an increase in violence and rage. Ghouls never go feral and just sort of sit there unless provoked. They're less like feral animals and more like rabid animals. Feral ghouls also seek each other out. Feral ghouls are rarely ever seen alone. They tend to group together and hide away. And most interesting, they rarely rarely ever attack other ghouls, and yes, that includes the non-feral type. Normal ghouls can seem to just walk among the feral fine, sometimes leading them like a little ghoul army. Ghouls as a people often band together and make their own little settlements due to people being scared of them because icky, stinky poo-poo smelling, or something. Ghouls on the inside are just humans, so of course their settlements will vary in quality just like any other. But with ghouls needing to stick together, they often have a pretty stable population and workforce. Ghouls grouping together to create a settlement is kind of a guarantee. Seen time and time again throughout all of the games. But enough about ghouls, let's talk about super mutants, Fallout's other most common new race to walk the wasteland. Super mutants, the big scary green hulking dudes from Fallout and Fallout related products, those guys. Super mutants would almost fall into the category of mutant monster people if it wasn't for the large amount of intelligence that's sort of scattered throughout their population. Super mutants are different from ghouls in, pretty obvious ways, but on paper they're both mutated humans. While normal ghouls are literally just normal people that look weird, super mutants are different. For starters, each population comes with its own caveats. Not counting Fallout 76, there's like 4 batches of super mutants. The original batch created by the Master, an on average smarter stock of mutants due to the careful selection process done by the Master's army before dunking humans in the forced evolutionary virus. The second generation of super mutants were created by accident by the Enclave via less than safe working conditions in the ruins of the Mariposa base. Now this second generation of super mutants is really dumb. Like so dumb the original generation of super mutants think they're dumb, and while I said those guys were smarter, I meant more so in comparison to these guys. That was on the West Coast, and on the East Coast, we have super mutants from an old Vault-Tec experiment. These guys are pretty dumb and violent, as they are out in the wasteland in Fallout 3 trying to find more FEV and failing, so they just sort of lash out on the population. Which, then there's the super mutants in Fallout 4, in the Commonwealth. These guys were made by the Institute during their FEV research that they were doing for some reason, but they considered a failure. They're a lot leaner than other super mutants and possibly smarter. It's a little up in the air, but there's definitely a lot more super smart super mutants and super mutants who are smart for being super mutants in the game. It's been years since super mutants posed a threat to the wasteland on both sides of the continent. We haven't heard much about integration on the East, but on the West Coast, it's been shown that even second generation super mutants can live together with ghouls and humans, although they're often led by a smarter first-generation group of super mutants. Places like Broken Hills and Jacobstown are run by super mutants, well, the same super mutant, but, still. Other super mutants can be found in the wasteland, living in various different places from various different populations and generations of super mutants, all still leading relatively normal lives, or as normal as they could possibly have. Some are basically large green men who act no different from me and you, and others are, more like big green children who are well-behaved. Interestingly, the super mutants also have a long lifespan like ghouls do, but the thing is, while we know it's long, we don't know how long it is. Ghouls have been around a lot longer than super mutants have, again ignoring Fallout 76, so we aren't exactly sure if they're seemingly immortal like ghouls, or will just have a really long life and then, around their 280th birthday they'll just die of old age. Now moving on from super mutants and ghouls, we have the fan favorite that we still haven't seen in 3D for no reason. The talking Deathclaws. These guys are only seen in Fallout 2, but we get to see them up close and personally. These were a group of intelligent Deathclaws who lived in Vault 13 for a time. They were originally just normal Deathclaws, but the Enclave did some tests on them and bam, they're not only smart, but they talk too. If these Deathclaws were simply given the chance, they could have easily integrated into wasteland society. Who wouldn't want a super smart and also unbelievably dangerous person to be friends with? But unfortunately, somebody who works in Fallout, who I vaguely mentioned in my previous Fallout Mutants video, really hates fun, and has said in the Fallout Bible that all of them died except for Gorus, the companion Deathclaw, but Gorus also specifically never had any kids, and also every talking animal died, and we'll never see any of them ever again. Yeah, cool. We were almost having fun again, but yeah, thanks for making sure we didn't. I choose to believe that they're still out there in a small population, just secluded. Nuka Break told me Gorus was alive, and I trust that. I think everyone hopes to see more of these guys in the future. Come on, Fallout TV show. Do what you have to do. Now is your time to shine. Shout out to all the other talking animals in Fallout. Speaking of underrepresented, we have our final group for this section, the near-human mutants. Yeah, this is a weird part of the series. It's kind of Fallout's least talked about topic, but it's always a present idea at the very least. I mean, this idea has been kicking around since the isometric era, but it's rarely ever, like, expounded upon. These are mutants that are extremely similar to humans, so much so they're rarely ever actually seen apart from other humans, but they're still not quite, Homo sapien. Although sometimes they do sequester themselves away. These people come in all shapes and sizes and aren't really like their own group of people, as they are all different from one another. This is basically the miscellaneous category. In Fallout 2, you actually do encounter one specific group called the Slags. A group of people who came from underground after generations of living down there. They've sort of changed into these just really pale humans with big-ass eyeballs. You can help them get their trade set up with other places in the wasteland, so we can hopefully assume the Slag people are doing well after that. I talked about it in my mutant video, but there's also the swamp folk, who, while looking weird, are pretty damn close to humans, sometimes even having children who come out more or less normal. Although they don't really mesh well with the normaler children, apparently, oftentimes not really understanding that this is one of them. Their biggest problem isn't even the radiation, it's the fact that all of them are related a few times over, if you catch my cold. Then there's the new men, who, thanks to Fallout, the Magic the Gathering, for some reason that exists, we know are humans who are mutated to have a special connection to plants and are mostly connected and found to be in the religion based on Herald. There's also possibly a group of mutants who are like vampires. Basically, they just are cannibals who have no negative side effects from eating people and have a lust for blood. Now, some people contested this claim in my comments saying they're just crazy, but shut up. It's cooler if they're not. All right, just okay. And a lot like the Slags, you can help set up a trade with the local town, who they in turn protect from raiders, so we can at least assume that hopefully things went well for these folks too. There's other near humans in the series, but most of these are ones that haven't actually formed into their own groups and cultures and are just sort of one-off weirdos. So in effect, there's actually loads of new biological races. There's just two major ones and like an unknown but likely large amount of small populations of new types of people out there. One small group I'm not entirely sure should be here are cyborgs. Cyborgs are pretty self-explanatory. They're people with robot parts and such. They are literally just humans, although the few that we have encountered seem to have extremely long lifespans for non-ghouls. A lot of them are also just brains in jars and heads in jars and people in jars, and the largest and only grouped together population are the lobotomites in Fallout New Vegas, and well, those are just mindless monsters, so, take this part how you will. On the subject of robots, though, we have our next section, the most interesting section to me personally. We have
please assume the position.
Fallout, like any other sci-fi, has robots and, well, a lot of them. Different shapes, sizes, models, companies, etc. The robots in Fallout are weird, though. From the start of the series, it's always been a little hard to gauge just how advanced they are. Some of the robots of Fallout seem to act more like machines with voice synthesizers, with some of our own personal machine assistants in real life seeming to be more advanced, at least in terms of intelligence. Then we come across robots that are far more advanced. The kicker here is that it'll be the same make and model as the robot we just saw a second ago who gets outperformed by Siri from 2011. These few will seem to be robots that aren't quite Blade Runner, but are more like super advanced AI. Like what dumb people think ChatGPT is. Then after we run into a few of those guys, we'll encounter robots that just seem to be entirely sentient. Fully autonomous, choice-making, feeling-having people that happen to have an off switch. Well, we have an off switch too, but to get to that, all you need is a heavy rock. Meanwhile, you need the robotics expert perk to get to theirs. And again, the strange thing about this is that this level of consciousness exists across the robot spectrum. From different models made for different purposes, it doesn't seem to matter, and from different companies as well. So yeah, it doesn't seem that one pre-war company just had the secret sauce when it came to coding these things. And the jury is out on what makes robots do this, what makes them go from very smart to alive. Could be time mixed with chance. It's certainly not entirely time, because the vast majority of robots we find are from the pre-war. And sure, many of them have gone offline until they got repaired, thus barring them from turning sentient. We see many robots that really have been on for over 200 years that are still just talking toasters. So chance must be a factor in some way. Maybe it's a slip in the code, a glitch that expands until there's a clear difference in intelligence between Wadsworth and Codsworth. It doesn't need to be a particularly smart robot to go sentient either. Assaultrons are basically just walking weapons. But Cleo from Good Neighbor is pretty damn sentient, running a store, considering herself a woman rather than a woman-shaped robot, which, you know, good for her and all that. And also having a plan to kill everyone in Good Neighbor. Even her friend if she feels like she needs to, which, you know, normal behavior there, I suppose, depending on who you are. Robots of all levels of intelligence dot the wasteland. Some are treated like objects because, well, they are, but other ones, even the ones that aren't exactly sentient but instead are really, really smart, are treated like any other citizen. You bet the sentient ones are going to be treated like citizens as well, because they're going to make sure of it. Sometimes robots can even come together to make their own settlements. Sometimes it's basically a factory, and other times it's a little village of Blade Runner replicants living with Siri-level robots. But most of the time you will find robots and humans living together. Sometimes even getting married, or I don't know, just fucking, I guess. Because there's no shortage of that. So yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to refer to at least a portion of the robot population as a new race on Earth. Hey, if they were all like Wadsworth, I wouldn't include them. Just like how I wouldn't list Trogs and Spore Carriers as a race. Fallout Wiki, those are monsters. Guys, those aren't people. Come on, that's like saying centaurs are a race. Guys, come on, guys. You know that's not right. You know that's not a race. Get that off of here. Come on, what are you doing? Anyway, if it all seems like I'm wrong and there's no truly sentient robots, then I'd just have you look at Codsworth all playing as an evil dickhead in Fallout 4. Sure, he's a robot that you probably bought at Fallout Walmart, but oh boy, he certainly does not approve to you of being a raider. Dude's more sentient than that synth follower nobody cares about. Oh yeah, and if you want Fallout Tactics to be canon, one time robots posed a threat to all the wasteland, but Bethesda can't decide if they care about that game. Now this leads us on to the last new race to stalk the war-torn Earth. I'm sure you've heard of them, and you know what I'm about to say. Yeah, it's the synth, a pretty new race in the Fallout world. Well, the versions of the synths that I would refer to as people are pretty new. Having only hit the wasteland a few decades ago from the time of Fallout 4, these synthetic robot-adjacent people were created by the Institute, the main villains of Fallout 4, after a few generations of just having highly advanced Five Nights at Freddy's endoskeletons. After that, the Institute were finally able to create the synthetic people they were always working towards. Now, these guys are just as much flesh and bone as the rest of us, with a few additions like shutdown codes, synthetic flesh, and having a brain that's apparently somewhere between a robot and a human. As you can see, when you transfer the mostly sentient Curie's consciousness into a consciousness-less synth, every group in the Commonwealth has a different view on the synths. The Railroad sees them as an enslaved peoples, the Institute sees them as robots that they own, the Brotherhood sees them as like a threat to all life for some reason, and the Minutemen are like, yeah, I don't know, scary maybe. I don't know, I met one, they're pretty cool, I guess. Not much to talk about in terms of what the synths have done, other than form their own community in Far Harbor, led by one of the two older model synths that are actually sentient. What there is to discuss is how the synths will move forward. Going off the fact that no Fallout game's canon ending has been the bad one so far, it's safe to assume that no matter who Bethesda chooses to move forward with, the Institute will get blown up either way. That means no more synthetic people are being made, and the amount you see in the Commonwealth by the end of Fallout 4 and on Far Harbor are the sum total of synths that will ever exist. Unless they start making their own somehow. I mean, I don't know. If you ask me, I think the canon ending for Fallout 4 is definitely the Minutemen. Bethesda was really pushing these guys. So again, running with that assumption, they aren't going to be really hunted down. So we have an unknown but not entirely small population of synths in a still pretty hostile place for them. But place of refuge is just a boat ride away. I don't think we're going to see many synths in the future, probably one or maybe even two, but I think that's pushing it. Characters at least mentioned in Fallout 5. Meanwhile, I think the majority of synths are going to leave the Commonwealth and settle in Far Harbor with the safe haven there. Although, if the Commonwealth becomes a more accepting place for synths now under the leadership of the more stable Minutemen, maybe the inverse will happen and the synths of Far Harbor will leave that awful, cartoonishly horrible place to live and join the rest of the Commonwealth. I mean, seriously, even if all of the synths go here, I don't think it's going to make the quality of of living go up too well. I mean, this place is literally just hell. I mean, hey, if ghouls can do it time and time again, then I don't see why someone who's basically just a normal-ass person can't build a settlement for them and theirs. And with that, I think that's all of the races that can be found in the Wasteland. Unless the Fallout TV show whips out something new, I don't think this video is going to quickly become outdated. And no, sorry, I can't count the fish people from Fallout London because they don't reel. They fan art, not real Wasteland certified creature by Thod Howard. Alright, and now if you're still here, you should follow my art social medias. Maybe commission me. Maybe. Definitely. In 2010, a creepypasta was uploaded to the internet involving Fallout, the Cold War, real-life mysteries, predicting the future, and of course,
3 Dog here.
This creepypasta was, of course, Fallout 3 Number Station. And, well, it took hold pretty fast and strong, moving from just a creepypasta and into the territory of an urban legend. What such macabre, tall tales could have captivated the players of the hit RPG series to the point where many of them actually took stock in the ideas put forth, being true to reality? Well, getting a bunch of dates wrong about celebrities winning awards and appeasing the wishes of Doctor Who actors. Yeah, that seemed to grip the Fallout fans with an iron fist. So terrifying. Happy Halloween, folks, unless you're watching this after October in the future, and well, to that, I'll say what I said last year, and that was, sorry, you're not allowed to watch this right now. This is a Halloween special for a reason. You gotta go watch a different video for the time being. Or, just leave this video paused until it's Halloween again. Both are equally reasonable things to do. So for this year's Halloween, I thought I'd take a look at Fallout's basically only notable creepypasta, read it for you, and talk about why it works so well despite being kinda dumb logistically, and how it really got people to question if it was real. And we'll probably talk about this thing too, so if you know what that is, stick around. So without further ado, my rendition of Fallout 3 Number Station. Fallout 3 contains several in-game radio stations. The most diverse and important is Galaxy News Radio. Many players of the evil persuasion know that you can kill 3Dog, the station's host, and he will be replaced by his technician, Margaret. She is not a charismatic person and has very little to say, seemingly not enjoying her new announcing duties. She also never appears in person and therefore cannot be killed. Once 3Dog is dead, you're stuck with Margaret. What most players do not know is that under certain circumstances, GNR will become a numbers station. A numbers station is one that broadcasts an unusual coded message. Many of these exist in real life. Some hypothesize they are a nuclear retaliation control network. You can check Wikipedia for more information about these odd broadcasts as they relate to the real world. No one is really sure which actions are needed to hear the numbers station in Fallout 3. It appears that you must kill 3Dog. It also appears that you have to skip over the quest Galaxy News Radio, where you help boost the station's signal so that it can be broadcasted further than just the immediate DC area. This is easy enough to do with either a speech check or by using the Fallout wiki to look up where to go next and advance the plot. Finally, you definitely have to destroy Raven Rock. This is the actual trigger to turn GNR into a numbers station, and will remain such for the rest of the game. However, the vast majority of players who perform these 3 actions still continue to hear the standard GNR broadcasts, so there must be several more requirements the community has yet to isolate. If you're lucky enough to have hit upon the right set of circumstances just after destroying Raven Rock, you will get the message radio signal lost, and a few seconds later, radio signal found. You cannot, however, actually listen to GNR just yet because you didn't boost the signal and are out of the range of the broadcast at the exit of Raven Rock. Luckily, Raven Rock is situated in the mountains near one of the few places outside of DC that you can get high enough to catch the signal. So far, the confirmed locations to hear the GNR numbers signal are 1. Within the immediate DC area, obviously this is true for the regular GNR throughout the game. 2. At the top of the Ferris wheel at Point Lookout. 3. On the tops of some of the SATCOM arrays you can climb in the northwest area of the map. 4. On the roof of Tenpenny Tower, though this may be within normal broadcast range anyway. Feel free to playtest and get back to me on this. 5. On the highest point of the broken bridge around Arafu. Again, maybe within broadcast range anyway. 6. On some of the highest points of the mountaintops in the area near Raven Rock. This is obviously your easiest chance to first listen to the numbers station. When you tune in, you will hear an old, familiar voice, 3Dog. Despite the fact that you killed him earlier. However, you will quickly notice that he does not seem to be in character, so I guess it's not technically Three Dog, but the voice actor Eric Dellums. He reads a series of numbers in a monotone, depressed-sounding voice. He always recites a list of single digits between 9 and 12 characters long. For example, 93791720034. He never uses a multi-digit code like 11 or 40. These numbers are followed by widely varying lengths of Morse code. This is then followed by the song I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire. All the other music tracks seem to be inactive at the numbers station. The Morse code was the easiest part of the mystery to crack, as it is widely available and many people actually know it off by heart. We quickly had a list of a great number of messages in English. Some sounded completely mundane and even comical, such as wash the car today, maybe Chinese for dinner. Or, have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts. You may be saying, but wait, YouTube doesn't exist in the Fallout universe, and you are right. As far as we could tell, all of the messages sounded like they were based in our reality, somewhere near present day. Some of the messages are quite sinister. For example, the Queen has died today. The world mourns as on days like these we are all Brits. Or, I can't believe they've actually done it. Not long left. The noise. I can't take the noise anymore. I have a pistol in the attic. Just recently, a player on the wiki forum noticed something that brought light to the meaning of the messages. He was reading a thread that collected all the known ones, transposed from Morse to English, and saw the line 12055282010. What are you talking about? You'll be missed. He discovered this referred to the recent death of Gary Coleman, and then quickly realized the numbers were relevant to the date and time it occurred. He immediately scanned through the messages to try and find more examples of this apparent future-telling by the game that was more than a year old. The next message he read shocked him and pushed him to enlist the aid of others to decipher the codes. It was 945420210. Accident in the Gulf, several dead, oil spill apparently averted. He realized this was the BP explosion and the erroneous day one assessment that the well was not leaking. From this point on, all numbers will be transcribed as times and dates. All times were given in-game in military format and remain so in this document. Numerous members of the Fallout Wiki message board began looking over the messages to see what else could be learned. We quickly found that most of the dates were from after the game had been released, yet oddly, some were from the past. 22/15, April 15th, 1865. He's dead, and blame will probably be placed on that actor, Booth. Johnson better not cheat me out of the payment. This news shed doubt on the official version of the Lincoln assassination. As the community quickly started piling up interpretations of the messages, the mods of the site summarily banned everyone who had posted in or even read the thread. All references to the numbers station was removed from the Fallout Wiki, and filtering software was put in place to prevent the reposting of any relevant information. A few people, however, are trading emails, slowly finishing the translation of the remaining messages and putting dates to the existing ones. The Queen has died today. The world mourns as, on days like these, we are all Brits. 1421, March 19th, 2014. Have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts. 24/16, December 24th, 2012. I can't believe Britney actually won an Oscar. 21:33, February 27th, 2023. I can't believe they've actually done it. Not long left. They were warned, but they just had to keep pushing the boundaries of science. The noise. I can't take the noise anymore, and the light. Dear God, the universe is slowly unraveling around us. I am not going to wait for death. I have a pistol in the attic. This is actually the only message not preceded by a string of numbers. It may be worth noting that the latest date on any of these messages is 1/27, July 6th, 2027. So, how was it? Good? Thank you. So with having read that, and you having watched it, I think it's easy to say that it's not anything crazy. A bit goofy, some mysterious dates being read out over an in-game radio that were totally never gonna be accurate when it came to the future. I mean, for crying out loud, they predicted the end of the universe, and also got the date of the Queen just not even close. And also, days like this were all Brits? I think not. I mean, it's no Ben Drown level of creepypasta, but it's a step above the likes of Sonic.exe. There's less major holes in it than Morrowind's JVK when it comes to the game itself. And there's no real hyper-realistic eye moments, but at the same time, its creep factor isn't anything major, and hearing something like, "I can't believe Britney won an Oscar," can maybe take you out of the mood. So why and how did this still end up working so well with Fallout despite it having to do more with the real world than the capital wasteland? Why did this for a hot moment switch over from creepypasta to video game urban legend? People like myself actually thought this might be real when they were, young, like Bigfoot in San Andreas and saving Aerith in Final Fantasy VII. I mean, they tried to predict the end of the universe with some sort of Doctor Who reality bomb-esque scenario, I suppose. How did people look past that and go, maybe this is real for just a small moment in time? That's because it just works so well in premise with Fallout. See, as I'm sure you've heard before, number stations were real, and well, still are, I guess. Number stations are radio frequencies that are believed to play out encoded messages for governments and militaries for their more cloak and dagger operations. Number stations have existed as long as radio has been in wide use, really spanning back to World War I. But the number station golden age, so to speak, was during the Cold War, which makes sense for obvious reasons, what with everything that was happening at the time. Number stations are all but confirmed to be related to espionage when the US government accused Cuba of using a number station for, well, espionage, which would have demystified much, if not all, of what we know about them, but the only issue is number stations are still kicking. They still crop up around the world from time to time for unknown reasons. It's a little off-putting because you think the world would have moved on from conducting its espionage via open radio frequencies, but apparently not. Or maybe these radio stations are for something else. Ooh, very scary. But I'm not insane, so this video won't fall into some weird conspiracy. Worry not. To top all that off, the number stations are just creepy sounding. I mean, listen to this example. And that's why the creepypasta worked so well. Because even if it's proposing some insane stuff, it's still believable. Sure, it posits that a in-game radio station can predict the future, but if you suspend your disbelief for just a second, it all feels very plausible. Fallout is obviously pulling from the time of the peak of the Cold War, what with its 50s and 60s retro-futurism and, well, of course, the nukes and the remnants of a hyper-militaristic society. A numbers station really makes sense when you think about it like that. Something that is quintessentially Cold War-era espionage existing in a world that pulls directly from that just kind of adds up. On top of that, Fallout always has its creepy undertones, and well, a number station would just slip right in there. And of course, the creep factor is upped by killing Three Dog. Galaxy News Radio is one of the few bastions of normalcy and comfort you can find in the game. Turning off the radio and running around in the tunnels can just straight up turn the game into a horror experience. And while it will still run without Three Dog, that loud, charismatic voice in your ear telling you everything is going to be fine and dandy if we work together is really the heart of that comfort GNR brings. So with or without the number station, if he's gone, it kind of loses that comforting magic. And that's only compounded by the idea of it turning into a number station, still read out by Three Dog, just without any of that personality. The idea is just so tangible that people looked past just how, stupid the story was at times. These games aren't strangers to weird broadcasts either. While the Mojave music station in Fallout New Vegas isn't scary by any means, it is mysterious, being automated and un-DJ'd radio radio station that's never acknowledged by anyone in the game, it kinda adds a little something to it. In those few second breaks between it switching tracks, it switching over to a number station wouldn't feel like such a reach either, but instead it just turns on Johnny Guitar. And then outside of that, there is just mysterious radio stations, although they've served a purpose, like the Sierra Madre, or even more mysteriously, the unintelligible broadcast that brings you to the Mothership Zeta DLC. So that's why it made the leap from creepypasta to urban legend. It didn't sound too impossible, yet was still very intriguingly creepy. You can still find old videos of people trying to prove that it was real, or earnestly trying to debunk it, as if a future-predicting radio station in-game wasn't easily disproven. This is what makes a good creepypasta, a good urban legend, a good scary story work: believability. Without that, we just end up with stories tripping over themselves to try to convince you just how scary it really is. That's how we end up with creepypastas like Italia episode 23.5, the one where the gang eats Italy. Like, yeah, sure, it'd be pretty creepy if I actually stumbled across that for real, but there's no doubt in my mind that didn't happen. A spooky number station existing in a video game that has in-game radio set in a world inspired by the number station's peak time era is believable. A lost episode of a gag anime where they eat a dude for no reason isn't. Doesn't even make any sense. There's like an entire city half a mile behind them. Fallout, despite being a series that loves to dabble in horror when it isn't having you do a side quest where you become an adult video star, didn't really have much to speak in terms of fan works of horror outside of the number station. And if it did, I'm sure it was some random creepypasta a 9-year-old made about Jeff the Killer hiding in New Vegas. Of course, nobody read it. That was until a recent horror series popped off for the same reason that the number station worked so well, and that is Dr. Bosch. I don't want to make this section too long because this video is meant to be about the number station, but I felt like I should talk about this because to me it feels like the number station walked so Dr. Bosch could run. If you're watching this video, I already assume you know about this YouTube channel, but for those who don't know, Dr. Bosch is a Fallout ARG series that's currently still going at the time of this video. No, I will not explain what an ARG is because, dude, like, here's the definition. If you don't already know, you're either 3 years old or 89. This series popped off about a year ago when it started, and it's about a player very calmly and nonchalantly recording their journey through a weird, ever-changing hellscape that lies just outside the Fallout New Vegas map. You simply need to get out of bounds and start walking to find sites like this and sites like this. Now, when I first heard the term Fallout ARG presented to me, I groaned a bit because nothing really sounds lamer than that. I was expecting as many ARG cliches as possible, the creepypasta equivalent with its hyper-realistic eyes and I am God moments, but instead I got something that was not only genuinely creepy but also genuinely interesting as well. I'm not here to break down this entire series. I mean, it's still running and there's people who can and will do that better than me. I just wanted to mention this series because it works so well for the same reason the number station works, just a little differently. The number station works so well because of the setting of Fallout. The Cold War, the espionage, the radio station still running in a desolate world. It all makes for a perfect and believable story about a mysterious number station broadcast. Dr. Bosch works so well, not because it's believable in the world of Fallout, but because it's believable in the game of Fallout. Bethesda games are always built in a certain way for better or for worse, and there's always going to be a weird, mysterious, out-of-bounds area. And that's what this series plays off of. Because there's never been a hellscape outside of the bounds of a Bethesda game. There's always been, like, some stuff out there. There's always been a void that each indoors location is floating in, and sometimes there's things floating outside of it. And notably, there's always, stuff outside the map. And a big stuff outside the map sort of situation is something like unloaded Skyrim. In Skyrim, all the big cities are walled and are loaded into their own world, and obviously because it's a city, you get to see peaks of the outside world despite, there being walls around you. But this being a Bethesda game, it's not hard to get outside of these walled cities, and outside of them is a weird, completely there, but completely unfinished map of Skyrim, filled with weird LOD models, strange stretched textures, and weird terrain. Further outside the map, we can find more famous hidden stuff, like a chunk of the White Gold Tower from Oblivion, and a completely empty, but still there, Vardenfell from Morrowind. If you keep going even further, shit just gets weirder and weirder and weirder out there. This kind of stuff can be found basically in every Bethesda game, and that's where Dr. Bosch comes in and takes the general knowledge that the fanbase has of what's outside of the game and turns it into a really effective setting for horror. Just like how the number station took what the fans knew about the setting of Fallout and turned it into a very effective, creepy story, this did the same. Hell, if I was a real small kid again, I might accidentally fall for Dr. Balsh and think that there's actually a hell dimension just outside of Mojave. I mean, I fell for the number station, didn't I? I even tried to prove that it was real. I never wanted to kill Three Dog permanently because I loved him. So I'd save, kill him, and then continue playing the game for a little bit, hoping that the radio would inevitably turn into the number station, but it didn't, and instead it just kept playing I'm Tickled Pink, so I'd have to reload the save. Something I want to note is the use of the radio in Dr. Balsh's videos. These aren't literally number station, but I think the general underlying idea and vibe is similar enough. After all, number stations don't technically have to use numbers, and sometimes they'd use both. They'd often just play other reoccurring sounds. Like in this very famous recording of a number station that I have right here. To me, at least, there's a very similar kind of eeriness that comes from stuff like in the episode Signal. Using the radio station for some kind of creepiness seems to be something fans have always wanted from Fallout, and maybe is something Bethesda should tap into when they make Fallout 5 and 50 years. I mean, I'm not asking for a hell dimension or for them to predict the future, but just maybe a mysterious and creepy radio frequency we can pick up on. Yeah, so in terms of Fallout horror, that's all we got, but hey, creepypasta turned into an urban legend, and a pretty damn good ARG is a good run, isn't it? And with that, the Halloween special is over. You better have been watching this in October, otherwise I'll be forced to send you to your own personal hell dimension. You should follow my art social medias. I've got some pretty nifty Halloween art posted this year, so happy Halloween, and I'll see you next time. Hey there, I'm back, but unlike usual, I'm talking about a TV show. Don't worry, I'm not going to become some sort of review channel, and I'm certainly not going to become a review channel of TV shows. But if you've watched my previous videos before, I think you can understand why I'm covering this, also because it's extremely topical right now. So as I'm typing this, I have not watched a single trailer of this show, although I have seen many promo images, and for the love of God, get this dude a helmet or like some Fallout 3 in New Vegas power armor. He looks so goofy right now, about as goofy as you look like in Fallout 4 without a helmet. So hey, they already got accuracy points on that. So I've written down a few things that I'd like to not see in this. First off, I don't want to see the characters meet a protagonist. I don't want to see a protagonist. I don't want to hear a protagonist, and I think that's pretty reasonable, and for my reasoning, why is pretty self-explanatory. It's an RPG series. I don't want to see one of these dudes that I didn't make. I'd like to see as little MCU moments as humanly possible. Now, I'm not the #1 MCU hater in the world. No, not really, but I think everyone can agree we're a little bit tired of people making fun of names or anything like that. I really don't want to see anyone go, the Master, that's kind of a dumb name. I think that's a pretty reasonable ask to not have that, or at least have as little as humanly possible if they just can't help themselves. Third thing I don't want to see is any weird lore shit. Like, okay, listen, there's room to add lore, there's room to bend lore. It's not as if this series is without retcon, but I don't know, maybe don't add like a 5th source for super mutants that predates the Master or something. I think we have enough of those. And finally, I really do not want to see people not knowing things they really should know. This kind of shit drove me nuts while playing Fallout New California. Like, what are you talking about? Who thinks the Vault Dweller and the Master are just fairy tales? Are you stupid? Okay, but with all that, I'm gonna go watch the show. I'll be back in a hot minute. Well, I just finished the show, and, yeah, that was certainly something. First off, hey, the Brotherhood guy actually had a helmet on more often than not. So, hey, that's good. But, the show did a lot more than I thought it would. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to restructure the video, how I'm gonna play all this out. So, instead of doing what I was gonna do, I'm gonna break down this into what I liked about the show as the first half of the video, and the second half will be the spoilers and, what I think of them. Let's just say the plot is a little ambitious, and if you've already finished the show, yeah, you know exactly what I mean by that. And if you quit watching halfway through because you saw someone on Twitter say that there was a major retcon in the show, yeah, calm down and stay for the second half. But anyway, what's good? So first off, the main characters are pretty good in my opinion. I really actually like them a lot. We have 3 here. We've got the Ghoul, Lucy, and Maximus. The Ghoul has a real name, but the show insists that we just call him the Ghoul. Oh, and this story's dog meat is here too, if you want to count them. The show has these guys link up and break off at various points throughout the show, so we follow them together and independently at times. As well as we get a lot of flashbacks to the Ghoul's life before the bombs fell. I like how they went with this sort of theme of a low karma character, a neutral character, and a good karma character. The Ghoul is borderline a villain for a good chunk of the show, who's just following the same plot as the other two. Maximus is a good guy, but he has a lot of issues. Like, he lets power go to his head very easily, and he's pretty irresponsible. So he's the neutral karma. Lucy, the Vault Dweller, is a goody two-shoes who doesn't get how mean the Wasteland is. And of course, through trials and tribulations, she is hardened to the harshness of the Wasteland, but never gives up her good spirits. So of course, she is the good karma character. And then there's just Dogmeat, and Dogmeat is Dogmeat. Doesn't care about morality. Dogmeat is just there, being a good little dude. Just like in game, kill whoever you like. Dogmeat will always be there for you. I would say that overall, all the characters had a pretty good balance of screen time, but it felt like Lucy got a little bit extra, you know? The other 2 protagonists always linked up with her, not the other way around. Maximus and the Ghoul were never really together. It was the Ghoul and Lucy, or Maximus and Lucy. So Lucy is kind of the heart of the story, the protagonist among protagonists, which is fine, because they make you not too attached to the others by making the Ghoul just a super asshole. He even eats his friend's ass. And by making Maximus just kind of dumb, just a little bit, but Lucy is also just a little bit dumb too, so they bounce off each other pretty well. When it comes to the show's aesthetic, I think they captured it pretty well, although, of course, it's mostly based off the look of Fallout 4, which seems to be the look that Bethesda is going forward with the series, which has its positives and negatives, but I think they grappled with some of the aesthetic choices of Fallout 4 better than Fallout 4 did, and made their own version that I like better. An example being the Pip-Boys they had in the show. If anyone here has watched my other Fallout videos, you'll know that the only thing I hate almost as much as the new Nuka-Cola bottles are the Pip-Boys in Fallout 4. These giant, massive, plastic-looking brown things have always been a letdown from the glorious Pip-Boy 3000. But these ones that are already for sale at the Bethesda store are kind of like a combination of the two, and thankfully they look like they're made of metal and are a normal size. Although I do find how little the amount of gizmos and gadgets there are on there is a little weird. I mean, compare this to like the Pip-Boy 2000. What happened? Now, I want to talk about the series humor for a second. I like it, but it's really, really fucking weird. Here's an example I took myself. I'll put it on screen right now. Yeah, there's a lot of that, and it's all delivered extremely deadpan. Hell, shortly after Maximus's introduction, there's just a dude straight up jorking it. And by it, let's just say, I mean his peanuts. It's not all dick jokes, it's just extremely out of pocket all the time, which thankfully I think breaks up the flow of the tone in a good way. And yes, they didn't actually rely on MCU level humor, and didn't randomly poke fun at concepts within the universe. They almost had one where Lucy was calling the Western Brotherhood of Steel's mission to use pre-war tech to get pre-war tech to protect people from pre-war tech. A little weird, but I can let that slide because yeah, the Western Brotherhood is a little weird, alright? Eastern Brotherhood on top, go cry about it to your plushie collection. Fallout New Vegas Fan 2077. Speaking of fun though, I did like a lot of the little touches the series had. Stuff like characters using the classic 10mm pistol from the old Fallouts and Fallout 4 soon, I suppose, or the inclusion of the sunset sarsaparilla in the background of the first scene in the show. Or in that same scene, they do the whole if the mushroom cloud is smaller than your thumb, you're safe thing. My favorite thing has got to be this part where they linger on this shot for like 3 seconds of what I can only assume is literally just the Fallout 76 Pip-Boy they sell on Bethesda's merch shop. There's another thing this show does that I love, but it isn't a little wink or a nudge like the other ones. It's just a confirmation of an idea that I've been saying for years now. This idea they show settles, or should settle, a lot of arguing, but this is the Fallout community we're talking about, so it isn't gonna do shit. But this show shows that ghouls do come in many levels of decaying. Listen, I thought that the ghouls in Fallout 4 looked too well put together as well, but this show thankfully agrees that there's no reason that all 3 of these looks for ghouls can't coexist together. Although no ghoul had a raspy voice in the show, which was weird, but the games have shown that it's not a total requirement. Just saying to the showrunners,
it's not really hard to get somebody who can do a ghoul voice. I should know, I've done it a few times.
So to end this part, I'll just say that if Bethesda Bethesda is careful about this, we are looking at a potentially really great and cool way to experience Fallout. And right now, it's just a pretty damn good show. Now, to move on to the spoilers, there's kind of a lot of alarming things as well. Okay, I'm gonna give you a chance to leave if you haven't finished it yet, because I'm gonna say a lot here. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shady Sands got nuked by a Vault-Tec dude who got frozen in a Vault-Tec experiment, but this time the freezing part was on the Vault-Tec side and not the test subject side. Yes, Shady Sands is fucking gone. The NCR collapsed, and the remnants of them who are trying to fix this shit get pummeled into the ground by the Brotherhood of Steel really, really hard. But hey, at least before they get totally pummeled into the ground, they got the power turned back on with cold fusion. But now that's in the hands of the dick-ass Brotherhood. And the whole thing ends on a cliffhanger with the twist villain going to fucking New Vegas, where it appears some shit has seriously gone down. Okay, let's breathe for a second. Yes, I was as shocked as the rest of you that Shady Sands got nuked. I think, too, that it is a little bit much, and I think it is a little weird, a little presumptuous that a fucking Amazon Prime original is making such a massive leap over, you know, like an actual Fallout game. And it does feel like kind of a weird, mean-spirited thing to do to, like, the Vault Dweller. Like, man, he put a lot of work into that. Like, Jesus, I think the NCR collapsing isn't that far of a stretch from where they left off in New Vegas. It's really just the nuking of it. And by who nuked it feels like a bit much to me. But the people who are saying this is some weird jab Bethesda is taking at Fallout New Vegas is just stupid and genuinely parasocial behavior towards a video game studio. For one, the NCR are from Fallout 2. If anything, this would be a jab at Fallout 2. Yes, you should actually play the old games and stop pretending that you do, Fallout New Vegas fan 2077. No, Bethesda does not hate Fallout New Vegas. You need to stop anthropomorphizing a company. Bethesda does not feel anything, as they are a collection of people who work for Microsoft, not a singular person. If you asked the employees of Bethesda and Obsidian what's the best Fallout game, they'd probably all say, like, Fallout 2, and maybe a few stragglers would say Tactics. And besides, Fallout New Vegas makes Bethesda a fuckload of money. There's this scene later on in the show where Lucy is reading a timeline of the NCR's history, and she sees that it ends with a mushroom cloud. And then she looks over and touches the flag of the NCR, and it holds on this scene for a little bit, while in the background, the Fallout theme is playing. And it was genuinely kind of moving, really. This isn't meant to be some wiping the slate clean of the West Coast. This is supposed to hurt. Okay, enough dick riding for a second. Let's get back to the point at hand. This is still kind of fucking nuts. But I do think that seeing as this show is definitely setting up for a season 2, things can go really well. I'm sure the group of NCR remnants we saw are not the only ones left. And hey, they did get the power back on to the NCR. Top that off, it seems that they're setting up Maximus to reform the Brotherhood from this super dickish state they're in. His boss wants to do some reforms, but he sounded really, really sinister about it. But what we do know is that he wants Maximus to be his second in command. So yeah, I wouldn't really call it a stretch to think that maybe by the end of the show, Maximus is on top. So if the showrunners play this well, we might be looking at a West Coast with a rebuilt and now humbled NCR, who are probably going to stop the whole Fallout New Vegas business they were up to, and a much nicer, less borderline secondary villains of the show, Brotherhood of Steel. Which, to me, sounds like a good way to set up a game's plot where these two are ready to fight a mutual threat again, like Fallout 2. There's also an Enclave Remnants faction that is only shortly shown, but is definitely very important to the story, but we just don't know much about them or their place in the whole situation here. Because, well, you know, they left a lot of loose ends for season 2. Now, I love the Enclave as villains, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. They need to stay fucking dead. I mean, Jesus, how many times do they need to get their shit kicked in? But their place in the story is so open that they could take this any way at all. So maybe it'll be good. Let's hope. The only two things that I'm super worried about is New Vegas and Vault-Tec. Vault-Tec are very firmly insinuated that they very well could be the one ones who started the whole Great War, and the very common consensus is that whoever launched the first nukes should remain a mystery. I'm sure we all thought that Vault-Tec had a hand in it in some way, shape, or form, but most people figured they had about as much of a hand in it as any other government in the world, any other big power. Now, with the language they use, they could very easily spin it in the direction of ambiguity on the whole affair, which I'm sure we're all hoping that they do, but it can also very easily be spun in the other direction. Now, as for New Vegas, man, I have negative zero idea of where this is going. Obviously, things are going to be said that confirm how things went, but you guys got to understand, this is how Fallout operates. The canon ending for Fallout 1 is killing the Master. The canon ending for Fallout 3 is Project Purity. I understand that the plot of Fallout New Vegas being left undecided for so long has cemented the fact in the fans' minds that it is, you know, up in the air. But if we ever got that fabled Fallout New Vegas 2, we would get a canon ending anyways. So you can't be mad that they're doing this, but you can be mad about how they do this, because that is the real thing at stake here. We are looking at three options here: the NCR, Wildcard, and Mr. House, because for crying out fucking loud, you know the Legion was never in the cards. Please stop crying into your body pillow for a moment and listen to me. Just like how the bad endings of Fallout 1 and 3 were never going to be canon, this one isn't going to be either. But you know, to the unwashed people watching this video who love the Legion, fuck it. Maybe they are going to do that, because I wouldn't have expected that they would nuke Shady Sands. So who knows? Maybe they will make our mailman a fucking marauder, a highwayman, an extreme LARPer, a no-pants-having expert glazer. Still, I doubt it. The main thing they gotta avoid is any images or detailed descriptions of the courier. I think that's something we can all agree on. We don't want to see somebody else's courier, we want to see ours. Give them a canon ending, I can write around that if need be. I can't write around a canon appearance. But even though I said that, I definitely will if I have to, and Amazon Prime cannot stop me. And with that, this video is over. We are done and out of here. Go follow my art social medias on the screen, and maybe I'll call you cool. Go play a mod I'm in or something. I don't fucking know. Anyway, bye. Fallout is a lot of things. It's dark and depressing, a harsh look at militarism and the total cost of war, accompanied by bleak reminders of what could happen if we continue to let governments squabble over resources and political powers. But at the same time, it's a silly adventure with pop culture references, talking dogs, clones that can only say their name, gambling, and mysterious men that pop out of thin air, either dressed as Mad Max or a noir detective. It's a sci-fi western, it's a post-apocalyptic Blade Runner, it's high sci-fi, it's low fantasy. It's a whole lot of things, but through all of it, from the super grim and dark to the goofy and silly, there's one thing that's always there: mutants and mutations. If you haven't noticed, this game has a lot of those. Almost like there was an entire game about it. So after like what, technically 10 games, we've had a lot of mutants to see. We have ghouls, we have super mutants, we even have Mothman, I guess, for some reason. Sure, why not? But excluding Mothman here, we have a lot of really odd mutants that just come across a little bit more odd than Big Green Man and smaller, normal-sized Zombie Man, if you get what I mean. Masofabish and Gob here are weird for sure, but what lives down here is weirder, at least in my professional opinion. But I mean, who am I? A guy with a helmet? Anyway, play the thingy. Well, I bet you didn't think vampires would be the first thing I talked about in a video about sci-fi mutants. Unless, you know, you played Fallout 3, which you probably have if you're watching this video. But remember a few seconds ago when I said what lived down here was weirder than zombie men? Yeah, well, the answer to the question of what lives down here is vampires. I know, crazy, right? We meet the vampires in their starring role in Fallout 3's Blood Ties quest when you come face to face with a faction called the Family. A group of people with, at the very least, a small mutation where they need to feed on other people. Basically, they are mutated humans where instead of all of the net negatives from normal cannibalism, they only have net positives. Except, of course, the net positives are only on the physical level for the vampires. Because, you know, eating people comes with a whole host of angry people who are at least slightly upset you are literally eating other humans. So one of these mutant cannibals rounded up as many as he could find and formed the Family, a smallish vampire cult that teaches people to be mutant vampires and not mutant cannibals. On an unexpected note, there's actually a nice ending for this quest where you don't have to be either Reinfield or Van Helsing, and instead, you can mediate between the family and the nearby town they've been attacking, Erifu. The good ending has the people of Erifu being safeguarded by the family, and the people of Erifu just have to donate blood to them. For what it's worth, all in all, Vance, for being the leader of a vampire cult of mutants, is actually a very reasonable dude. Now, what's so good about being guarded by these vampires? Well, as I hinted at a little bit ago, these vampires have a bit more power than just being built to drink blood. Yeah, it turns out they probably have more than a teeny tiny mutation that absolves them of the sins of cannibalism or whatever. Yeah, they seem to have a bit more vampiric abilities than meets the eye, with many of the members having unusual strength and durability, being able to fend off forces that should be able to wipe them out, and being able to walk off wounds that should be lethal. Now, some of these claims could just be the vampires getting a little ahead of themselves, getting a little too far up their own ass. But even the in-game stats of someone like Vance here seems to prove these guys are more than humans. Vance, the leader of the vampires, actually has significantly higher hit points than your average humanoid character in-game, having more hit points than your average super mutant. Yeah, one of these guys. So, comparable strength and durability between Vance the vampire and, again, one of these guys. It's been said that a few of the other people in the family have had the strength to rip a man's throat out with their bare hands alone. So yeah, I think it's safe to say at this point, the vampires of Fallout are just being a bit humble with how they present themselves. Because this is definitely more than a cannibalistically inclined mutation. But I actually hope we see a lot more of these kind of people in the future. Maybe not specifically the family, and maybe not specifically vampire mutants, but just near-human mutants in general. I think this is a really cool concept, especially when paired with the more monstrous mutants we usually get to see. I don't know why. After researching this video, I just think they're really interesting in terms of concept. But just, how do I top the vampires? What could I possibly follow up the family with? Well, I can think of one thing. Don't worry, I'm not about to deliver some crack-ass theory about how the aliens of Mothership Zeta are actually mutants. First thing I'm going to be talking about is actually not really an alien at all. Kind of like how the vampires aren't actually vampires, but still looked and act like vampires, and I don't know, maybe smelled like them too. The same could be said for these, but with aliens, and of course, if you know Fallout, you know what I'm talking about. I'm referring to the mutants that are so alien that many people of the Wasteland actually think they are aliens. Fallout's Wanamingos. And I mean, can you blame them? Can you blame the Wastelanders for thinking that these might be aliens when they look like you strapped a xenomorph's head onto two legs and told it to walk? Now, these things are kind of mysterious. We have not a lot of in-game info for them. The Wanamingos are some sort of pre-war FEV experiment gone very, very wrong. Or, well, I mean, maybe very, very right. This is pre-war American military we're talking about. They probably like these guys in concept quite a bit. But if we look at some out-of-game info, our favorite twice the size of a normal human aliens are just all dead. Gee, thanks. I was almost having fun for a second. Good thing you put a stop to that. Yeah, apparently some people behind the scenes, I'm just gonna say some people because I don't want to sound like I'm directly yelling at a specific person, even though I am, just really hated the Wanamingos because they were too fun and interesting, I suppose. I guess for them, they just seemed too out of place. But like, this is the same game with weird-looking alien creatures like the floaters, which I'm only briefly mentioning because they're nasty and I don't like them. I mean, look at them. But these things look just as much alien to me as the Wanamingos do. But, you know, these are fine, I guess. Both are even probably made with FEV, but I guess the look of the xenomorph head was just too much for the guy. But I mean, come on, saying that all the Wanamingos had a secret kill switch implanted in them that killed any remaining members of their species after the Chosen One was done fighting them. Like, imagine if somebody was working at id Software and they said, you know what, I hate that the Kako demon has just the entire face from this D&D monster, and force them to all look like Kakos from Doom 3 forever. Now that wouldn't fly now, would it? But I mean, hey, whatever. Last time we saw them was when Bethesda added the Wanamingo plushies in Fallout 76, and you may see the issue I'm seeing here as well. But Bethesda, that's not a Wanamingo. I can see you based it off the design from the unused Fallout 3 Wanamingos, but those didn't look like Wanamingos either. Bethesda, please don't do this. Please don't make this real. I'm begging you. You either need to never use these again or keep them alien. Please, either leave them dead or have us fight giant xenomorph heads, because nothing in between those two options is good. Anyway, speaking of aliens, oh my god. Oh. See, these are the abominations fans of Fallout 3's Mothership Zeta DLC, and they have very good names. They have very accurate names. Now, I wasn't going to include these at first because I always thought that these were some weird pod people that came from mixing alien and human DNA. But apparently, according to a few surrounding resources, the aliens are actually turning abducted humans into these monsters, which is way more horrifying than initially thought. So yeah, these guys were actually just humans at some point, but now they are abominations, which means that these guys are most certainly mutants in some way, shape, or form. This is genuinely one of the nastiest ideas in the series. I mean, making one of these in a tube is bad enough. They just point and scream at you when you're spotted and then attack. There's really nothing going on behind those eyes. But the idea that whatever evil process the Zetans can use on these people can just warp humans into these abominations, I just really don't like that idea. I mean, I do in a horror sense, but in a real world sense, I really hate that idea. I mean, just look at them. Their organs are bulging through their skin, and you thought super mutants could be body horror. Oh, and I just want to say that I'm actually super glad they went with this design. Some of the concept art shows really different ideas of what a human-alien hybrid monster should look like, and I feel like while those are good, especially the more humanoid ones, I feel like the uncanny nature of this final version sells the alien aspect way more and is way more creepy. I mean, these designs could easily come from Fallout's Earth. These are no more crazy or more alien than any of the Centaur designs we've had, unless we're talking about the Thing. Then I guess in that case, the Centaurs are just as alien. But speaking of horror, our next mutant is up, and we've got... So you may have heard about this one from some other Fallout videos or just somehow found out about it, but I only recently found out about this, like a few days as of writing this ago. See, normally I wouldn't really include cut content because, well, you know, it didn't happen. Sure, maybe I'll gloss over an unused design, but I'm not going to include Gojira on here in this list because he's not used, you know, he's not real. But this was reused in a way, so yeah, I'm going to cover it, and also because the idea is nuts. So what's your opinion on the feral ghouls of Fallout 4? Me, I'm mixed on them. I think they are so unbelievably gross, but that's clearly the intention of the design, so they are very well designed. But I mean, I feel like these should be some sort of special ghoul, a swamp ghoul or something. The normal ghouls and feral ghouls of old are actually very similar in terms of design. These, I could definitely believe, are the same thing, just one has dementia, but these new ghouls and the new feral ghouls, they're just so different. If I didn't know any better, I wouldn't assume that these two creatures were related at all. But there was an idea for a feral ghoul in Fallout 4 that would have satiated my mixed opinions on them. And of course, I'm talking about the Maypole. This was a ginormous 300-foot ghoul, apparently, that was going to walk around the world with a horde of feral ghouls that you'd have to fight as a boss. This was, of course, cut from Fallout 4 for what I can imagine was a lot of reasons. For one, making something so thin and frail and also so large was probably a challenge. I mean, sure, we have super mutant behemoths, but those are so solid and wide. They just have to have big, slow, stompy animations. But this was the 2014 era creation kit, and I don't have much faith in its ability to do Half-Life 2 Strider animations. Something like this would need to bend over or swing low. It's not going to carry a weapon or anything. Now, I suppose it could just stomp on you, but again, this is the 2014 era creation kit, so yeah, I don't have much faith in that either. Sure, Skyrim giants could do that, but they were also not 300 feet tall, and also, yeah, there's kind of the elephant in the room, the giant 300-foot ghoul in the room. Why is this thing exist? Why is this thing, really? I mean, how does a ghoul get so big, and why does it get so big? Ghouls are rotting, not growing, but I mean, the rule of cool may win this one, because everyone seems to think that this was a really cool idea, and they wish it was in-game. And we would actually eventually get a giant ghoul in lore with Sister Dawn. From the Fallout tabletop, I'm sure some 20-odd people have ever played. Now, Sister Dawn is nowhere near as big as the Maypole, but hey, it's something. But now that question is actually posed within lore. why is she so big? Why did this happen? Why is a ghoul so large? Well, apparently the villain of the source book Sister Dawn comes from was able to turn her into a giant ghoul by using a MacGuffin. Yeah, cry about it. You don't get to know, I don't get to know. You just got to deal with it. The magic radiation device did it, all right? Now maybe we'll actually be able to see the maypole in the future, but if we do, I think there needs to be a bit more into it than what was originally posed. Like, for something so grand and big, there needs to be some lore, maybe some more focus. Maybe this is a result of whatever shenanigans the main villains are up to, because having this just being a wandering boss is weird. Like, bro needs some lore. But speaking of lore, we've got plenty with this one. Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you understand the joke from the title card? Anyway, I'm talking about the various mutated humans from Fallout 3's Point Lookout DLC, the Swamp Folk. These guys are really weird because they're another case like the vampires where they aren't really like another species yet, like ghouls or super mutants, or at least considered another species. They are still humans, they're just not exactly normal. See, the Swamp Folk are sort of the natural inhabitants of Point Lookout. They are the way they are due to mutations and, well, being just really inbred because, yeah, they are from the south. Now, yeah, these guys have some obvious deformities, and some of these guys are just sort of weirdly large, but they are still very close to being human, which is what makes them stand out so much. There are a few NPCs in Point Lookout that are actually technically swamp folk. Yeah, these are not humans, these are swamp folk. They just sort of came out normal, I guess, lacking the physical and mental traits of the rest of them. So to us, they appear as normal, regular people, but still technically on a genetic level, I guess, this child is one of these dudes. The swamp folk can not only be traded with by people they deem the locals, but they can also speak English and often do.
Get you, girl! Go get you, girl!
They're pretty startling to me because they are still so outwardly human, but they just sort of look like caricatures. Like, these are cartoon people. Look at them. Don't even get me started. This dude doesn't even have any of the growths like the rest of them or something. Radiation be damned. This man could just exist in the real world where this story DLC takes place. Moving away from more potshots at southern people, seeing as these guys are so close to being humans, they do many of the things humans do, like religion. Yeah, all or at least most of the swamp folk seem to be drawn to worshiping some dark eldritch god you can find out more about in my Supernatural Things in Fallout video. Now, this may have been something that happened after the war with the radiation sweeping across Point Lookout and the inbreeding only getting worse than it already is. Maybe with all that, their brains were drawn towards the allure of the well-put-together Black Hall Mansion and stole whatever seemed important within it and began worshiping it, assuming it had some sort of value. Or maybe it was just that the Point Lookout locals were already worshiping these dark gods even before the war due to the Black Hall's influence on the area, and it only became more outward and more obvious over the years. Before we move on, I just want to drive home how weird these guys are. Like, we have many humanoid mutants, but none like this. We have ghouls, these rotting people. We have marked men, these skinless people. We have super mutants, these big green people. We even have scorched, whatever these are, diseased people or something. We even have alien people. But these swamp folks are just weird people. I don't know how to put it. They mutated into weirdos. But speaking of weird, we have... Yeah, I'm just ending this video off with Fallout 76 in general because what the hell is going on over there, for the love of God? I mean, the list of the most outrageous creatures is still ever growing, and I can't tell what is and what isn't supposed to be a mutant at this point, because for some reason Bethesda is just straight up addicted to cryptids. Sure, fine, Mothman, I'll give you that one. Fine, Mothman. Mothman's really big in West Virginia, I get it. But oh, we don't just have Mothman, we have Wendigos, and oh wait, what was that? Oh, the Wendigo Colossus! Mole people, little creature dudes. I thought we vetoed that back in, like, what was that, Fallout 1 or something? I thought we said no, but not anymore. We got, the Blue Devil, aka a whole ass werewolf. But I mean, I guess it's just like a wolf deathclaw. But speaking of devils, they just added the Jersey Devil, and of course, the legendary Lesser Devil, my favorite. No, the legendary Lesser Devil. On top of that, on top of the Lesser Devil, you can just fight the Grafton Monster. I get it, Bethesda! And stepping away from mole people and urban legend, there's the Scorch Beast, which is like the mascot of the game, I guess. I've played it. There's a lot of these. It's just a radiation dragon. It's made out of bats, I guess, which is cool. Sure, why not? And hold on, not to outdo the Scorch Beast, we have the the mega sloth, and heaven forbid, we look at the overgrowth. Why does it look like a Mirelurk King got trapped in Vault 22? Tell me. Why is it in New Jersey, for the love of God? What did New Jersey do to deserve this? And finally, the last one, the Interloper. Now, you see, the Interloper here is just a model in game. It's worshipped by a cult. Don't worry, you don't have to fight it, and it doesn't move, because if it did, I'd cry. See, this is very clearly supposed to be some sort of Lovecraftian monster, because Bethesda has an even worse addiction to Mr. Cool Air than they do cryptids. But the thing is, no matter how much Lovecraftian stuff they sneak into Fallout, they can never come out and say it's all real. So while this is definitely meant to be some sort of horror from outside of time and space, this still needs to be a mutant canonically or something. But what could this possibly be mutated out of? What made that thing? And with the Interloper, the video is over. The video ends right now. I'm done. Follow my art social medias because I make art. I think it's pretty neat. You should too. Anyway, I'm out of here. Well, would you look at the time? It's Halloween, probably, when you're watching this. And if it isn't, what are you doing? Turn off the video. This is the spooky season special. I mean, come on. Go watch whatever I've released after that. Come back in, like, I don't know, however many months it is till it's October again. Is it December right now? Are you watching this 2 months after I put it out? I know you are, you goon. Anyway, Fallout has always had a spooky undertone to it. Monsters under its Vault-Tec branded bed. Skeletons in its nuked out crater where its closet used to be. Now, at first glance, this series is just a science fiction extravaganza. But just like its inspiration, that being the old pulpy sci-fi of yesteryear, it's often spooky for the sake of spooky. Whether that's the haunting remains of what used to be a playground now rusted over as it's been over 200 years since a child has stepped foot in it, or it's But see, those are both purely sci-fi, but Fallout just can't stay away from the supernatural. It's an addiction, really. Fallout wants to tell you a story about the post-apocalypse, but they can't stop eyeing that Lovecraft novel on the table. So for this spooky season, I thought it'd be best to tackle such a topic in the same way Fallout does, erratically and with less information given than I should have. This series and its psychics really go hand in hand all the way since the beginning of the series. From its more technical in-universe categorization of them to people with vague yet evidently real powers. People with psychic abilities and psychic-esque powers have made their first appearance in Fallout 1 and have stood the test of time, still appearing to this day in Fallout 76. So starting from the beginning, we have the Psychers of Fallout 1. These were a group of experiments by the Master, who also had psychic powers. Now these powers were portrayed more like abilities of the mind they had heightened due to everyone's favorite sci-fi goop, the Forced Evolutionary Virus. But these abilities go a little above and beyond your standard, my IQ was raised to 10,000, so now I can read your mind, and veer more off into a JoJo, poke this part of your brain and turn into a vampire. With these psychics having abilities like pyrokinesis, it's hard not to veer off into fantasy trains of thought when a guy can command fire with the power of his mind. The Master apparently also had incredibly potent psychic powers, rendering anyone but the most built different unable to fight him when they were in his psychic zone, although clearly they weren't potent enough in the end. But the psychics don't end there. In fact, they only get more vaguely supernatural as the series goes on. Like in the next game, Fallout 2, where the Chosen One's tribe shaman Hakunin can just communicate with them in dream visions outright. While outside of having his face in your dreams, it's not that scary, because, you know, he's actually trying to help you, but it is outright magical. This guy didn't get any FEV injections in the brain as far as I know. He's just magical for some reason. I don't know, he does a lot of drugs. What do you want? He's just a wizard, man, and you have to accept that at face value. Moving on to Fallout 3, we have the brain in the jar from Point Lookout, or, you know, more so the brain in the tube from Point Lookout. But his powers lean like almost 120% into the scientific angle rather than the supernatural, but the DLC he appears in is going to be important later to some Lovecraftian context. But until then, we have Forecaster and Mama Murphy. Murphy. Forecaster here is really just an excuse to call back to the Psychers from Fallout 1, as he's wearing the same thing around his head as they did, a tool that dampens the psychic powers of the user because, you know, I guess if they think too hard, they'll get like a brain hemorrhage or something. But make no mistake, he still is really a psychic. He's not just a reference. The only issue is his psychic readings kind of suck. I mean, they are definitely real, just not very interesting. Like in one of them, he tells you to go talk to Veronica, who is like 5 feet away from you, and you should go be friends with her, which might have been helpful on your first playthrough in 2010. Now see, Mama Murphy, on the other hand, needs to do hard drugs to get her psychic visions, which you could interpret as her just being high off of her ass and telling you what she's imagining. But if that were the case, that just means she is incredibly, almost supernaturally lucky, because during those trips, she tells you stuff that she would have absolutely no way of actually knowing. Give Mama Murphy enough crack and she'll tell you the password for a quest, or she'll tell you where Kellogg's house keys are, and she can even give the player a courser deactivation code. Now maybe you could be like, oh, what if she's actually a synth from the Institute and she's doing like 5D chess with you, and that's how she knew. No, she's just magic, alright? Anyway though, Mama Murphy and Hakunin both seem to lack the medical issues that the FEV psychers have. What with the whole needing the mental dampener so their heads don't explode or whatever. I mean, I say this assuming that Forecaster is sort of an FEV psycher in some way. I mean, the little dude is wearing the mental dampener, so I think it's sort of safe to assume. If it's not, I don't care. Don't tell me otherwise. I'll cry. So anyway, it seems like there might be a bit of a pattern here. That psychics whose powers come from more mystical origins / drugs might be a bit better off than the FEV brain inject kind. But while Mama Murphy, this grown-ass adult, is 1,000 times better than the literal child Forecaster at the same game, her weird need for drugs is likely to kill her. Give her enough ketamine and she will just die. So like, point for Forecaster, I guess, you know, good on him. In a Tumblr post, Joshua Sawyer stated that Fallout can have a little bit of supernatural as a treat. It should remain unexplained and feel alien. And I definitely agree, whether it's super evolved brains or just people with seemingly magical powers, I think both can fit in the series just fine as long as they don't really try to explain why or how this works. And that goes for all the supernatural stuff we'll discuss in a moment. You know, Fallout, you can have a little bit of dark gods as a treat, but not a whole meal. Now, there is one more psychic in the series that's worth mentioning, but he is, bar none, the most powerful and evidently supernatural out of all of them. But I feel that he should be saved for a later segment, because there's a lot more to him than just being psychic. And with that, let's move on to... Oh, did you think I was going to talk about the Lovecraft stuff next? Nah, we talking about ghosts now. And when I say ghosts, I mean anything that's specter-ish, if you get what I'm implying. Because there are a few that probably could have sorta their own separate section, but they'd be pretty lonely in that section. So I'm lumping them all here with the same spooks and creeps. Now, ghosts in Fallout are interesting because unlike the psychics, the ghosts tend to range in how apparent they are. Sometimes they are very much in your face, and other times it's like, was that real or not? But starting with one that is very much in your face, we have Fallout 2. And in Fallout 2, you come face to face with a ghost in the den. Like, yeah, no, that's just a ghost. That's a specter, an ectoplasmic apparition. You aren't the only one who's seen this gassed, though. The ghost here is a specter of a woman named Anna Winslow. Or Anna Winslow, I don't care. Now, the reason why this woman is haunting some dingy room in the den is that her locket was stolen by a walking 1967 after-school drug PSA. And he saw the ghost too, you know, while he was high off jet, which would make him not the most credible witness, but unless you want to play your chosen one as a equally crack-headed individual as Joey here, I'd say your interactions with the ghost corroborate Joey's panicked ramblings. But on the spookier, more mysterious side of things, there's Fallout 4's Lucy Grantchester from the Nuka World DLC. See, Nuka World is just surrounded by a bunch of random weird places. Like, it's an odd layout on Bethesda's part. From a gas station with hubologists who made it all the way over from San Francisco to a Dark Souls reference, and more. But most importantly, the Grantchester Mystery Mansion. This place was home to the Grantchester family, the father Hannibal and the mother Morticia. Ha! I get it. And their daughter named Lucy. Unfortunately for the family, apparently, Lucy became possessed. And well, of course, what else do possessed people do but kill their entire family? This resulted in poor Lucy being locked up in an insane asylum till her 18th birthday. Until she escaped, ran home, and, she did something. I'm not gonna say, but I'm gonna put it up on the screen. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble for saying that. on YouTube. Anywho, like in real life, people saw a grisly crime tragedy and said, how can I make money out of this? And they decided to turn the mansion into a haunted house attraction for profit. Although I don't know how much money they made because, you know, that thing happened. What was it again? Oh, right, the apocalypse happened. Yeah, I don't think they might have made too much profit. Luckily, the building was left intact enough for the sole survivor to show up and kill some gunners who were held up in there. And while you're cleaning out all the gunners from the Grantchester mansion, you'll notice a little girl, very out of place being here, who disappears around corners and can seemingly run through dead ends. She is always out of reach. This is the ghost of Lucy Grantchester, probably. And just for added effect, she giggles at you while she runs away in case you weren't spooked enough by the creepy little ghost girl. The leader of the gunners here, Zachariah, actually wrote down that he too was hearing the weird, creepy little giggles from around the house. But of course, he chalked it up to a malfunctioning protectron because that could definitely feasibly make giggling sounds. Finally, if you're still a naysayer in our little ghost story here, your final interaction with Lucy has her running away from you yet again the moment you enter the room. But this time, she runs right through a door, and when you open it, it leads to nowhere. Now, I'm going to let my good friend here take over because, well, last time when I said this exact line, I said it was because it was very late and I had a lot to record. But now it is in fact the afternoon, a few days later, because guess what? I've had to re-record like 90% of this video. So I'm still going to hand it off to my friend. You'll like him. He's cute. It'll be fine.
Speaking of ghosts, as Snowy was saying, in Fallout New Vegas there's the ghost of She. Now, this is debatably a hallucination or not, but anyway. In Fallout New Vegas' Honest Hearts DLC, you come face to face with this massive, flaming Yaogwai after downing a concoction of a few plants you picked yourself, because you're such a good little gardener, aren't you? Yes, you are. Yes. Now, one could argue this whole thing was just a hallucination caused by the tea White Bird makes for you out of the plants. But this event happens often, because as the quest says, this is a rite of passage. So everyone seems to see the same flaming giant bear. So while the tribe's story about the ghost of She could just be leaving a deep cultural impression on the people of the tribe to the point where they all see the ghost of She, I have my doubts that it leaves such a lasting impression on you. You are just some guy who delivers mail and gets stuck in a national park. So, case closed. A girl slept inside of a Yaogwai cave and gets eaten and becomes a magical ghost bear. There is no other feasible argument you can make against this, so hush.
Well, wasn't that just swell, folks? But now let's look at a magic ghost thing I wish was just an illusion. Folks at home, do you remember the Children of the Atom? That little small cult in the middle of Megaton in Fallout 3 just sort of stood there while yelling in irradiated water, but overall they were pretty nice to the people around them. Well, for some reason in Fallout 4, they got a massive big upgrade into a massive fanatical cult that spread all the way up the East Coast and are now very armed and very dangerous. But they aren't that big of a deal. No worse than the raiders who are around them, who are also very armed and very dangerous. Though for some reason, Fallout Shelter Online thought that they were worth some special treatment here. I don't know if I follow the thought process in design, but you know, sure, why not? Anyway, they are kind of a big deal on the island of Far Harbor, where they are one of the 3 factions trying to survive on this quaint little slice of hell. Now, the Far Harbor DLC is overall very spooky, and maybe that's just because it's Point Lookout 2 for some reason, so I could go on and on and on about how spooky and scary this DLC is, but we're here to talk about cultists, not shellfish. See, the island of Far Harbor is covered in this weird, gross, thick, mysterious radiation fog, and within that fog dwells giant enemy crabs, but more importantly, a supernatural being known as the Mother of the Fog. Now, this ghostly woman apparently led this sect of the Children of the Atom to their new base on the island after being banished from the island's only town for being a weird cult. Which is fine and dandy. I mean, doesn't mean this is anything more than a legend, right? Wrong, because in the quest Visions in the Fog, your character is tasked with drinking stagnant, dirty pond water that's also been irradiated to the point where it's green, with a side of toxic waste for good measure. This, of course, leads you to see visions of the Mother of the Fog, which would be fine because in Point Lookout, you do a suspiciously similar quest, and that was all just hallucinations. Hell, the weird shadow versions of in-game enemies you see during this quest could also just be hallucinations. But I find it a little hard to believe that the mother here is just some dingy water-induced hallucination when she leads you through the fog to a building that has a wooden idol of her inside of it. A place you had no idea existed because it was just like a shack. Like, who cares about it? But speaking of divine figures and cultists, we have to move on to the big part. Bethesda Fallout games have a weird tendency to flirt with the supernatural a lot more than other entries in the series. Sure, I've mentioned plenty of things so far that weren't in Bethesda Fallout titles, but Bethesda just loves their supernatural a bit more than other studios. This love has manifested into a reoccurring side story that is steeped in Lovecraft bullshit. But before I go on and talk about that, let's talk about the Cabot family, and specifically Lorenzo Cabot. See, Lorenzo Cabot was that super powerful, supernatural psychic I mentioned, and this is when you get to meet him. So you meet the Cabots in Fallout 4, and they are a little odd to say the least. Their house is in perfect condition, and they themselves seem to be out of place. Their clothes are clean and intact. But no, they didn't just pop out of a vault either, which would explain that, but it's not what happened. See, a long time ago, the father in the family, Lorenzo, discovered an ancient lost city, older than any human and had structures deep within the earth. And in there, he found a weird-looking crown thing that would give him supernatural powers and immortality. Unfortunately, Lorenzo went a little crazy and went on a bit of a crime spree / murder spree. So his family had him locked up and contained in the basement of an insane asylum. And in there, they found out that they could extract some weird goo from Lorenzo and inject it into themselves, and they too would gain immortality. And this all happened back in the 1800s. Yes, the Cabots and Lorenzo Cabot are over 400 years old. And this isn't just a bunch of crazy people. No, we see Lorenzo's powers on full display in this because you can fight him. But also, I mean, like, man, look at his Fallout Shelter Online card. I don't even know what's going on here, but it's magic. Anyway, this whole backstory is clearly a nod to the Lovecraft story, The Nameless City, what with the ancient city older than humans lost in the Middle East, and there's creepy underground structures and all that. All very Nameless City. Anyway, you can choose how you want to deal with these goons. And one ending, you too can become immortal by helping Lorenzo, so that's something with implications that mean something. But Bethesda didn't just want to make an homage to Lovecraft stories. No, they wanted to write their own. And that's the reoccurring storyline I was talking about. The Dunwich storyline, which, yes, is still a reference to a Lovecraft story, but only in name. So this story involves two entwined families, the Dunwich family and the Blackhall family, both of which were super powerful pre-war families with massive amounts of wealth and occult knowledge and connections. And basically, we don't care about the Blackhalls other than a long time ago, one of them was named Constance Blackhall, and her brother was also Richard Dunwich, and she used her wealth and occult connections to get her hands on an evil magic book, the Creepypastas. And we know this because one of her creepy descendants is still alive in the post-war world, living in his family's decrepit mansion on Point Lookout. And see, this creepy descendant has a creepy problem. Some swamp folks stole the Creepypastas to worship it in their own weird, inbred way, and he wants you to get it back. Now sure, you could give the scary magic book to this suspicious magic man, or instead you could take it far, far away from Point Lookout, down to the corner of the base game map to the Dunwich building. The Dunwich building is probably the most famous and well-known part of this whole story, especially because it appears in every single video and list that's about, like, ooh, creepy locations in games that aren't actually scary. Anyway, this place acted as an office for the Dunwich Borers LLC company, and underneath it, you can find a big obelisk to the strange, mysterious god Ugh-Qualtoth. Along with the obelisk and the creepy vibes, you can find a bunch of audio logs of a man who went looking for his father who wound up here. Both ended up turning into ghouls, and this guy just straight up name drops the guy who wrote the Necronomicon, which is debatably too on the nose, but I mean, ignore that part if you want. Anyway, unless you really want to roleplay your lone wanderer as basically being Maxwell from Don't Starve, you probably want to bring the Creepypastas down here. Once you get down to the creepy shrine, just press the book against the obelisk will then eat the book, and all the ghouls will burst into flames magically. This isn't the last or only other Dunwich location. Over in Fallout 4 in Boston, you can find some of the boring that the Dunwich Borers LLC were doing. And of course, they just couldn't help themselves from putting an evil temple down in there too. I mean, where else would you put an evil temple? Honestly, it's perfect. It's a giant hole in the ground. Exploring down here, you can just straight up see ghostly visions through time of all the creepy ass past rituals that were held down here. You can get possibly an evil magic weapon from an underwater shrine, and down there you can also find a creepy face buried facing upwards deep within the earth. And I don't like that part. That part, when I found it for the first time, I was like, oh shit, I don't like this. And that is just about everything supernaturally noteworthy in Fallout. I mean, what else do you want me to talk about, huh? How maybe the giant face in the water ties to the sacred head of the Vault Dweller, or whatever the Bridge Keeper is and his possible Monty Python magic, or whatever mystical implications there are in the Cafe of Broken Dreams. Oh yeah, right. There's in Fallout 76, there's also the Smiling Man. Yeah, he's based off a real-life urban legend. He's weird and turns into smoke if you attack him. Although, in the real-life legend, he's, like, insinuated to be an alien of sorts, which isn't supernatural, but I mean, turning into, like, smoke is, right? Anyway, this video is over. Happy Halloween. Go to my art social medias to look at art-related art. Check your candy before you eat it. Goodbye.